Oh, hi, my name's Brian Henderson. I've been to a few of these talks. I've certainly enjoyed quite a few, so I thought after a number of times that I've been coming along, I thought it's my turn to do one. So here we are. I've been in the world of IT for about 30 years now, and I've been doing serverless for about 5 years, specifically AWS, Lambdas. So I work for a small organisation where I'm the sole developer. So being able to come along to meetups like this one are very useful to try and find out what else is going on out there and find out, am I doing the right thing or am I going off in my own little avenue? So the idea of this talk here is to sort of, for people new to serverless, is to sort of give them an eye for a few gotchas out there and things to watch out for. And for some of the more experienced users that are here, the hope is you can sort of share your experiences and you can sort of reflect on some of the roads that I've gone down, and if you've got any ideas as to how to improve them. Right, so the small organisation I work for is called No More Marking. So there's only 7 of us employees. We do assessments in school, particularly writing assessments, as you can see, there's a couple of examples there. Most people that do assessments for schools do some form of multiple choice, but there's nobody really involved in working with essays other than the exam boards. So it would be a lot easier if the students out there were using, had laptops on their desks and doing the systems that way. But alas, they've been talking about that for 20 odd years. It's never happened, and it's probably not going to happen anytime in the near future. So what we have is a system where we print out sheets, which has got the pupils' details coded on each sheet. The pupils then do the assessments. Just to give you some examples, for younger pupils in primary schools, it might be look at this picture and write a story around this picture. In an area like maths and secondary, we might have questions such as put these fractions in order of size and show how you did the calculations. Although I have to say, most people still draw pie charts to be able to do that. And also GCSE questions. We can take some of those questions and turn them into this comparative judgment system. So just to sort of try and make a little bit more sense. I don't know if you can see that very clearly there. But once all the assessments have been done, they're scanned in and uploaded to our website. And then from there, we get all the teachers within a school to go through and judge the pieces of work. Normally, of course, they'll have a mark scheme and they'll give every pupil a mark. But this time, we're doing it quite a different way. We're saying, look at these 2 pieces of work and tell me which one do you think's better. Just in a holistic sense, not in any sort of mark scheme system there. So they look at the 2 images, they can decide is it the left one or the right one, select one, and then they get another 2 items back. Now, serverless is a good fit for us because what we find is there's a lot of pupils or a lot of teachers tend to go on and do this judging at the end of the school day. So around 3:30 at the end of the day, teachers get together, go into a room and do the judging. And they're doing this across England. For some of our tasks, we get something like 100,000 pupils doing it. And each one of their pieces of work needs to be judged on average about 10 times. So we get huge spikes in traffic. And the algorithm for recording the decision, running through the algorithm, and then selecting the next pair is quite intensive. So, like I say, being able to run these in Lambdas so that the whole thing is completely scalable is very useful for us, and certainly made our lives a lot easier. And it also means very cheap Lambda bills, or the whole AWS bills, including S3 storage, everything else, I mean, it's only working at about £50 a month. So it's a very good value for us using this way. And comparing that to what we did when we started, when we first produced our first version, we did it, I don't know if anybody remembers Meteor here, which I have to say was a pretty good system for doing minimal viable products back in the day. I suppose nowadays most of these MVPs are done in Firebase. But back then, the ability to sort of have your data synced between the client and the server did make life a lot easier. And that chance to go out into schools and try it out and find out if this whole system was really going to work or not. So Meteor was good in the day, but the trouble was when all the teachers got on and started doing the judging, we had to sort of rack up quite a few more containers running the website, and it really was starting to work out quite expensive, which is at that point that we discovered serverless was the answer for us, and we've never looked back. It's certainly not been plain sailing. I'll talk about sort of a few of the issues as we go on here, but it's certainly made life a lot easier. So Create React App is how we run the front end, the client side, and the serverless framework, which really makes deploying with Lambda so much easier. And we've stuck with MongoDB for our database, which I have to say works well with serverless, and it just hits that sweet spot between being nice and fast, being quite economical, but also being able to query it is so much easier than something like DynamoDB. Although we're still sort of looking for more ideas in the future, so I'd be particularly interested. We've started putting some sites together in Next.js, which I have to say is very good. But looking at the bewildering number of new frameworks that are out there, it does make you stop and think, well, what way is it to go now? What is the ones that are really going to take off, and which ones are going to die a death? I'm particularly looking at Remix. I get the feeling that one might be quite a big one in the future. I see a lot of people starting to look at that. Right, so when I started off, the Lambdas worked fine when we only had a small number of customers. But as our number of customers has grown, we've started hitting quite a few of the limits that Lambda's got. And certainly, I'll want to sort of go through a few examples. And like I say, I'd be sort of interested just to see what other people do, if other people have had these same problems, and what sort of conclusions they've come to there. Right, so the first one, I suppose, is quite a classic example where when I first produced the site, being able to download a table with all your customers was fairly straightforward. Putting that into a table on the client side and then being able to edit it, do the pagination, do finds, etc., was quite straightforward. But soon we hit that 6 megabyte payload limit, and that's pretty much a hard limit. I mean, there is sort of clunky ways around it where you can write out things to an S3, a file on a S3 bucket, and then send back a link to that S3 file, but it did feel quite clunky to me, so we thought it was time to bite the bullet and download just a page at a time, produce a table that does pagination. But I have to say that involved a lot more boilerplate code, so it was a bit of a pain in the end. Hopefully in the future, I'm looking at things like React Server Components, and I think some of the frameworks have started to produce, I think something like Svelte. There's a package there that's combining the client and the server to produce some sort of table component that will make things a lot easier. But at the moment, it does feel quite a big pain point. The second issue that I came across was to do with using packages with binaries. So we do a lot where we're uploading PDFs. The schools scan in all the sheets of paper on their photocopier, and it produces a PDF of all the work. And then they upload that PDF to us to do all the crunching of the PDF files. And I have to say, that's proved a bit of a pain point. There is web services like Cloudinary out there that can crunch your PDF files, but that does work out very expensive. So we're looking at Lambdas. For example, Puppeteer is very good at taking HTML and turning that into a PDF, your headless version of Chrome. And there is a Lambda layer that does that. So there are some packages out there that work quite well. But it has proved quite difficult. I mean, another one there is Sharp, which does have instructions on its repository for being able to install on Lambdas. It is very quick at being able to take your images and crunch them in any way you want. But unfortunately, it doesn't work with PDFs. So using GoScript, again, that's using Lambda layers, and it's quite old software there. So it's certainly not straightforward, but it still feels easier than going down the road of containers. I noticed you said there that containers was a whole different story there earlier, and it's one we've tried to avoid wherever possible. But with the next one, TensorFlow, once you start doing machine learning algorithms, TensorFlow just will not fit into Lambda as things stand at the moment. I know quite a few people are sort of working on that one, but that's another pain point. And like I say, I was thinking originally when WebAssembly came out, there might be some more packages that would start using the client a lot more, but yeah, I don't see the adoption of WebAssembly going that fast. It does seem to have been quite slow. So we'll see if it starts to pick up or if that's another technology that's just going to die. Right, and the third one, although Lambdas give you 15 minutes, which is plenty of time, when you've got a web application and you're calling the server and calling a Lambda function, in effect, through the API gateway, you've only got 30 seconds before it times out. And trying to find a way around this is very difficult. You can invoke a Lambda function, and then you can do long polling to try and find out when it's finished. But that is quite, that's a bit clunky as well. Another way is just in the last few weeks, Lambda started doing URL functions. But the trouble with that one, that sounded a great solution, so that was bypassing the API gateway, but being able to call from the client. But unfortunately, you get stuck into CORS issues because you're not allowed custom domains. So trying to call APIs when it's a different domain, it's what's that?
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, yes, definitely. I was soon pulling my hair out with all of that side of thing. Hopefully AWS will be sorting that out. If they can make these URL functions use custom domains, it'll take a lot of pain away. Right, so just to sum up there, certainly there's quite a lot that you learn once you sort of get into the world of Lambda, and there's certainly quite a lot that I wish I knew now back then. Certainly I'd recommend using web services wherever possible, although when things scale up, it can start to seem quite expensive for using some of the tools. I'd certainly recommend doing quite a bit of load testing. Although the 6 megabyte limit on payloads seems massive when you start off, you soon start hitting the limits, and that can prove quite difficult. Debugging Lambdas is also quite a pain, especially when you've got binaries in your packages. And looking at the log files with CloudWatch, I mean, that's very basic. Some of the other systems like Datadog out there do sort of start to work out quite expensive as well if you start using them quite a lot. So they can prove quite difficult. But I mean, I'd certainly recommend just having a good experiment with quite a lot of different technologies, different cloud providers. Although I have to say, we've stuck with AWS for almost everything. It's still probably one of the fastest ways of doing cloud functions amongst all the different major providers. But I mean, yeah, if I can open it up though, I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts or any questions on a few of the issues that are raised there. Oh, right. I've got my pen and paper here.
You know, when you hit the 30-second what approach did you take in the end? I know you listed a couple, but what did you go for in the end?
Right, I mean, basically, thankfully it doesn't happen too often for us, but we would just invoke a function and then every 5 seconds run another function that looks to see if that Lambda's done yet, and do it that way. I don't like it, but our systems are just 100% serverless. We don't have any regular servers on the go, so we try to make sure that everything gets forced down the serverless road.
Is it users waiting for that response? Is that like an API function?
Yeah. I think as far as I remember it, the API gateway, your Lambda doesn't stop after 30 seconds, but the ability to get a response for...
My point is, you're using Create React apps, so you're using React scripts with some sort of, I guess, some sort of resilience layer, maybe, I don't know, Poly or something like that to make the requests? Or you're just using...
Oh, I'm just making the request through API.
Request, yeah, through API gateway into your Lambda.
Yeah.
And then what is it you're doing? Because it seems like any Lambda, any RESTful request that takes 30 seconds feels like it probably should just return a 202 straight away. Like, accepted, I'm going to do a thing, and you can find out about this thing later if you want.
Yeah.
If it takes 30 seconds to return, it doesn't feel like it should wait and return 200.
Yeah. Right. I mean, basically, if you can imagine our assessment systems here, when you want to do, if it's a very big task, and you want to refresh that task, so you've got to update the scores of about 100,000 pupils. That's where it hits more than the algorithm itself goes a bit recursive inside.
So that feels like a bulk upload type job. If it was me, have you played with AppSync yet?
I tried it, but I didn't get very far with it.
So you can use AppSync with GraphQL to set up a subscription to a database record. And then when the database record gets updated, you actually get a push notification through the AppSync WebSocket.
All right, now that's... that sounds pretty... Yeah, I mean, well, hopefully these sort of solutions are quite useful across the board. I don't know if other people have, if it's just me that's hit these problems, or if other people have had the same issue, but those...
At the moment with exactly that stack.
All right.
At the moment, the socket probably wouldn't share it in the talk because it's proprietary, but I'm happy to show you little snippets if you want.
That would be very useful if there's some sort of web pages that have got good examples of using it. The last time I looked at it...
The Amplify documentation for getting started with some front-end with
The last time I looked at AppSync, there was very little documentation around on it.
The Amplify documentation.
Oh, Amplify.
Because basically, with Amplify, you can just send up and it just does all of the gubbins behind. Like, I've never really had to dig into how AppSync works. I've just written a few, I guess, Lambda accessors, which give me my GraphQL interface. And the Amplify command line tool pretty much just sorts all out for you.
Yeah.
We use it directly with Service frameworks as well, so it's not too bad, to be honest. I've used it with them, so that's good.
I don't want to hog all the questions, but the front end that you talked about doing some server-side rendering, and you mentioned you using React. Have you looked at isomorphic React? So React isomorphic is the server-side rendering language for React components. So you can render your React component server-side in Node.js, and then obviously you can do that in a Lambda.
Oh, right. I might try. I mean, I'm starting to use Next, which has got quite a bit of server-side rendering.
And React Lite as well, which is actually a much smaller version of React, which is ideal for lambdas.
But there's certainly sort of it would be well worth looking into some of those.
I think there's some other good ones. Obviously, you mentioned Svelte, Vue. They're on our radar. VGSS, they're in the research category. We're not willing to use them for enterprise projects yet. I think React and Angular are here to stay. But Angular's a bit heavyweight, probably won't really do that. So.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for using technologies that are used by a large number of people.
Yeah.
So it's all about safety in numbers.
Svelte and Vue.js are becoming way more popular. I mean, Vue.js is flying on, but it's a longevity question. I think it's really, really popular right now. Probably, actually, when you look at ThoughtWorks do a tech radar, if you look at ThoughtWorks tech radar, Vue.js is almost called React in terms of popularity, but it's popularity with small projects in small enterprises. A lot of stuff we use enterprise scale, and right now that's just not ready for Vue.js. It's very, very React.
So where would you, if you were to put your money, which frameworks do you think are going to be the big ones in the future?
I'm not going to predict the future. I think React's here to stay. That's the only prediction I'll make. React's here to stay. Probably not through CRA. CRA was brilliant when it first came out.
Yeah.
But I've started using Vite.js. I don't know if anybody else is using
Vite?
Vite.js.
Oh, right.
It does differential builds. So it's much, you don't get the hot module reloaded, so when you modify it, you can see update. Because it does differential builds, it's much faster.
Next does some of that, and
Next
that's.
is quite good as well.
I've certainly found a big difference with Next. I won't start
Next
anything.
doesn't necessarily support, it's web component based, isn't it, rather than that React JSX stuff.
I mean, it's got React in it in Next, so certainly everything I do with Next is all React. So it certainly comes built in, so it does make things nice and easy. I don't know, that's...
PDF stuff. Are you doing the PDF stuff server side? You mentioned the scan documents.
Yeah, so we do, I mean, I have used a little bit of PDF.js on the client side, but it's fairly heavy.
What do you do with the PDFs though? Because do you get the scanned documents as PDFs?
Well, we get, so the schools give us scanned PDFs, and, we upload them, and then the first thing we do is turn them into images.
It's interesting that they give you scanned PDFs, because the chances are they're probably scanning an image and then turn them into PDFs to give to you.
Well, it's normally their photocopiers generate... Spit out PDF. So there might be images somewhere in there, but they only get the PDF, really.
It's funny, isn't it?
So it is probably going a bit round in circles, but...
You might be better off just giving them a cheap scanner. Just grabbing the image, because you could buy a scanner for like 15 quid. That'll scan text anyway, you don't have any high-res scanning. Give them a scanner with your brand and everything on, and there's something on the desk with your brand and everything on all the time, so people see it's advertising thing in the school. Plug it into a Raspberry Pi or something and just get it to scan and upload them to S3. And you've got the images straight away, you don't have to do any PDF.
True, but I suppose it's still...
You've got to maintain the hardware then.
Maintaining hardware in a school's an experience, but it's worth...
30 quid a pop.
It's certainly sort of one way. It's worth considering all these different options because... Yeah. Well, I think they're just getting a bit old-fashioned now.
PDF in wasn't.
Well, is there many packages that are doing that?
Well, you can compile them. You can grab any C# package and compile it for WebAssembly. There's loads of C# C++ compilers. Blazor, which is obviously the Razor framework in C#, that's compiled for WebAssembly now. And so there's loads of compilation compilers for WebAssembly.
Yeah,
so
right.
You get anything you get the source code for, you can build for WebAssembly.
Yeah, that might be quite an interesting idea. Oh, there are plenty of... I feel I should be paying you for all this consultancy here just now, but... But no, that's all very useful information. That's certainly the reason I come here, to get some good ideas. Yeah.
Actually, sorry.
Have you considered using something like Mechanical Turk to offer a service where you mark it for them and they don't have to do anything?
Certainly at the moment, it's the schools themselves that do things like judging. because the schools really just don't trust other people. If you give them scores based on judging by somebody else, they won't trust it. So they do want to do those things. I mean, we do have a team in the Philippines that have been doing sort of our support and some of the other things. We did get them doing some of the judging and that side of things, but it just felt, experimenting with doing A/B testing between the schools doing it all themselves for a low price, or we take care of everything we can for a much higher price. The schools went for it, and we did as well, to try and automate more of what we do. It's just to get the schools to do as much of the workload as we can.
Imagine the teachers probably don't like someone else marking their kids stuff like
Well, no, but that's exactly it. Yeah. So
my wife works in school. She would hate other people marking.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the whole, because we thought the Holy Grail would be if we can read in the text in these, pieces of work and then put it through some machine learning algorithm to do the judging. But the reality is, if we did that, the teachers wouldn't trust what came out.
I love the idea, though, that you stack rank them rather than actually get an actual number for a grade, because I think that's great, because the number for a grade is subjective, right? But if you stack rank, you can normalise that.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, that's the whole thing. When you see any piece of work and you sort of give it to a range of different teachers, every different teacher will give that same piece of work a completely different score. Whereas if you say to them, right, here's two pieces of work, which one's better, they will tend to agree. So reliability, so if anybody's done any GCSEs or whatever, or you've got kids that are doing GCSEs, you'd be shocked, but the reliability is around about 0.55. It's pretty low the way it's done the old-fashioned way. So I've no doubt in the fullness of time, it will move to this kind of system because the reliability is so much higher.
Can't even remember my GCSEs.
Oh, I can't remember mine either, but...
I got one last question, sorry to steal all the questions, but it's more about you. How do you find working as a sole developer in another company? And actually, is this... We have these meetups and stuff, but actually, Dan, we talked a while ago, didn't we, about maybe like an open Slack channel or something, where basically everybody could join in, or some sort of channel. Would that be of use to you? If it was like a channel where you could just chat to people like in groups like this?
I think it would be. I have to say, I'm sort of, there is that thing, obviously, when you work yourself. This is why, like I say, something like this is so important, because I do wonder, am I just going down my own direction? And meanwhile, everybody else has got this other great way of doing things, and I'm missing out. So,
if you want some validation, it sounds like
yeah.
everything right so far. Like.
Did you say it was like 50 quid a month?
What for doing for the servers? Something like for the basics before talking about OCR and those types of things. Yeah. The amount we spend on lambdas is pretty small, and SRE's practically free.
It's the right direction.
Well,
do you want to share your bill?
Yeah.
No, I thought you did. You shared it in the week, didn't you? I think you talked about it. It's lots of money, tens of thousands.
Well, how much were the pizzas tonight? I think we would probably buy the pizzas every month.
You could buy the pizzas every few seconds.
Yeah, every few seconds. It doesn't matter if, as long as the customers are being served and they're happy, and as long as you're happy, and as long as the bill is low, who cares?
well, that's very true.
You've made a bunch of the least wrong decisions.
Well, I do. It's one of my things there. I do like to keep the price nice and low. So.
So you can elevate yours nice and high. Is that how it works?
It's well, obviously, the less we spend in outgoings, the more money we can pay ourselves, which is always the most important point.
So you heard about our bill, right? You know what that means.
Cool. Thanks for that, Brian.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much.